Welcome everyone to the first after lunch session. So I think we have you in a good, happy state, and we hope to keep you that way, as well as hopefully have some entertaining discussion. Customers tell all. Well, tell some.
Yes, some.
Yeah, that's what we were talking about. We're not going to tell all is the good parts and some of the bad parts probably. Marketplace and dropship insights is the discussion today. Just a little bit about myself. I've been in the marketplace business for a few years. It's really kind of how I started in e-com back in '99. I started for a company called Channel Advisor as one of the first people there. Spent 10 years there, helped build a marketplace for Barnes & Noble, spent some time in the marketplace and dropship software space. And then about 6 years ago, I founded a consulting business working with mid-market and enterprise brands on digital growth strategy, value creation, including alternative business models like marketplaces, which clearly are important and worthwhile for everyone to learn about. You may have seen me post a bit on LinkedIn. I have 2 weekly podcasts. Check it out, the Watson Weekly and the Watson Weekend, if you haven't already. Would love to talk a little bit about what I see as the trends in retail for a moment. And it kind of starts with the statement that, look, retail is hard. And it's been hard for a long time. And I think the number of ways for retailers to gain margin is actually shrinking, because the idea most retailers relied for years and years, if you think of traditional retail, not necessarily the distributor business, on things like the private label credit card, and that was the source of margin. The number of private label credit cards, as everything goes to the phone and digital, keeps decreasing and decreasing. So as a result, that business model is slowly declining. On the side, you see what obviously the leader in the world, Amazon, has done is, how do we take our fixed assets and run as much volume through it as possible and sell services revenue on top of it? And that's really the core idea behind what a marketplace is about. Is a marketplace is a supply chain tool that you can then use to offer better service and offerings to customers. And then on top of that, you can offer a whole bunch of ancillary services which are much better margin than the 4% EBITDA we were talking about for a traditional retail business. And that's why really we're all here today. And I was recently reviewing, I watch a lot of investor earnings call, Walmart, Target, Amazon. I'm going to have Lowe's. By the way, a plug for Christine here. We're going to have Michael McCluskey, the head of marketplace at Lowe's, on the podcast Friday. Would definitely encourage you to, thank you, Michael, see you here in the flesh. So I'm excited about that. But if you look at sort of like recent Walmart earnings calls, which I know if you look at sort of the CEO of Lowe's and the board of Lowe's, sort of like draw a straight line from helping your customers deliver better service, have more offerings to have them, the CFO can also be happy with those things because you're going to drive more margin. Particularly from the Walmart CFO, John David Rainey, said that 50% of all the profit margin growth for Walmart in the past 2 years has been through additional digital services. And they all had their root at the marketplace, because the marketplace means, step one, don't carry inventory. Inventory kills retailers. In particular, like bad inventory decisions kill retailers. And then second, advertising revenue, fulfillment revenue, data and data revenue that you can then sell back to customers. So all of these partnerships that help the consumer, I think, are super important and will be part of our conversation today, where the growth is coming from and where the growth is going to be continuing. And I think as we get into this sort of agentic world with LLMs, people are going to be shopping differently. There's going to be more digital shoppers, and the more offerings and the better they're described, you're going to make more money and at higher margins. So I'm excited to talk with my panelists today, and this is like my chance to really introduce both of you, including starting with Russell, Senior VP of Sales Transformation at Cheney Brothers. Why don't we start here?
Sure, thank you. So I've been in the distribution business, the food distribution business, for 35 plus years. Owned a restaurant in Chicago, worked for two very large regional national companies as president, and spent my time really in the food distribution business. You know, the food distribution business is a local business. There's national companies and local companies, but Cheney Brothers in particular, is a little sidebar comment, we're celebrating 100 years in business today at all of our warehouses. So pretty exciting to be third generation running the business today, and it's just been quite a ride. But that business, so we're in the business of shipping food to restaurants, right? Food, equipment, produce, meat. You know, if you're down in Miami or Fort Lauderdale or Naples or Jacksonville, there's a good chance you're eating at a restaurant that food was supplied in part or partial by the Cheney Brothers. But it's a local business, meaning that there's lots of people that are selling that restaurant food. It's not just Cheney Brothers. It can be any of the national or other regionals or local produce guy, local meat guy. So in terms of, you know, share and how we get at customers and help them products, which we'll talk about through this conversation, they have lots of choices. And so we've got to find different ways to get at them, and I'll talk a little bit more about that. But that's my experience, my background.
Yeah, that's great. Appreciate you being on and look forward to the discussion. Aaron?
All right. Aaron Cheris, partner Bain San Francisco, been at Bain 29 years. Basically, I do three things. One, work with large traditional retailers on their digital strategies. Two, work with marketplaces that are pure plays online. And three, work with investors who invest a lot in retail and what I would call shovels to the miners, like Mirakl, businesses that help the retailers grow.
No, I mean, I think this is to be like an interesting panel because we have someone who has a view across sort of like the entire sort of retail ecosystem, B2C and B2B, as well as Russell, in terms of like a specific business. Like, I guess maybe let's start with Aaron, kind of going back to the, if you've been watching marketplaces for a long time, I see Tom in the audience, so I know who's like a very, very early Mirakl partner. I kind of go back to like Sucharita's white paper back in like 2014. It was like Adrian's dream headline, like every retailer should have a marketplace, right? And the exciting thing about that is that people are finally getting the memo. And so I guess the question to you is like, is that as true? Is it more true today? Is it less true today? Like, how do you think about retailers and their adoption of marketplaces, where we are on the curve? Like,
yeah, it's a tough thing being at a Mirakl Summit and say, no, it's not true. No, I think it is. I think it's true that everybody has to have a marketplace's strategy. Whether you have your own, whether you're part of other people's, whether you do both, right? It's hard to ignore the idea of marketplaces and the idea of dropship. You have to decide, am I a preferred spoke in somebody else's wheel, or are there people that I'm bringing into my wheel? I would say, a little bit to your starting point, right? The basis of retail is less profitable today than it was 10 years ago, which was less profitable than it was 10 years before that. And so, frankly, we're all looking for new ways to make retail more profitable. Once I spent the money, the CAC, to bring a customer to my store, to my website, I sure as heck want to close them. And so if I can close them with the inventory that I already have, great. But a lot of times they're looking for something I don't have. And so, marketplaces are a great sort of efficient way of solving that problem. There was an earlier talk about ROAS on ad efficiency. I think of it also just good old-fashioned return on assets, ROA. And there's nothing better than when I have 0 assets and I get return. And that's basically what you're doing when you have a marketplace. Yeah,
I mean, it's interesting. You mentioned everyone should have a marketplace strategy. Some people have had a marketplace strategy, but the wrong one. And to kind of go back to John Donahoe at Nike, who famously says, we'll never go on Amazon. And now look, Amazon is they're now on Amazon first party. Maybe we'll see them in third party again. Like, I
mean, as for brands, I remember when John said that. And I think the trick was, at the time when he said that he wasn't going to go on Amazon, $750 million of Nike product was already selling on Amazon anyway. Exactly. And so the problem was, did he want to be a part of it? Did he want to determine what the brand looked like and how it showed up? Or did he want to leave it to diverted product and third-party sellers that were reselling his stuff and item descriptions that weren't what he wanted? Right? And so the answer was you couldn't sort of dodge being part of Amazon. The question is just how.
Yeah. No, I mean, at the end of the day, if you're not on a marketplace or have your own alternative supply channel, it's like saying I don't want to be on Google or on, in OpenAI or ChatGPT or anything. Like, I just don't want my thing to show up. It's fine. Russell, you're running a dropship program through Mirakl today. Tell me how that works. Like, explain the customer workflow. Sure. Who are your customers? Sure. How do goods and dollars flow?
Well, it kind of goes back to our original thinking about, taking this path with Mirakl to drive a marketplace. We had this need in our business for what we call dropships. And a dropship in our business is a product that we don't stock in our building. So we may stock, we've got 6 big buildings. We may stock 10, 12,000 different items that a restaurant would buy. But there's tens and tens of other items that those same vendors make that we don't stock. And so a customer sees something at a show, sees something online, finds a product that he wants. So the way we would have handled it in the past prior to Mirakl was we would have ordered that from the vendor. It would have came on our next order in a week or two, and it would have come into our building, and we would have drop shipped it, or shipped it right to the customer, right? Yeah. Very long and arduous process. So the original thinking that we had was let's partner Mirakl up and use that as the vehicle to get our vendors to ship directly to our customers. Cut out that lead time, get products to customers that they want right away. And that was kind of the original thinking, and that was kind of where we thought this was going to end. And we got to spend a bunch of time and support with Hani and Nick at Mirakl, and they kind of opened up our eyes and said, it's a lot more than just that. Yeah. Right? We started that way, but it's a lot more than just that. And that's kind of what took us on the journey to kind of where we think about it today.
Yeah, I mean,
one more thing, I don't mean to
go ahead.
The other thing about dropship versus marketplaces, we're in control of the pricing. So our model is that we buy the product from our vendors, we decide what that markup's going to be, and we put it on the site or on our site, versus the marketplace model where the vendor's driving the price. That's the big nuance difference, I would say, between a dropship program and a marketplace program.
Yeah, I remember folks in the industry have been talking about what's a market. Is this a marketplace? Is this dropship? It's like an interesting intellectual topic. A lot of times inside of the company, first of all, it's safe to say, no small part to Mirakl, by the way, and Amazon, the word marketplace has generally won over the word dropship, I would say broadly in the e-commerce lexicon for sure. But once you're in the company, people just say, okay, it's stuff I don't have to carry on my books. But from the operational point of view, mostly the only people who care are the merchant and the CFO. The CFO needs to know what type of revenue to book. Is it subscription or services revenue, or do I book the entire sale? And then the merchant needs to know, where's it coming from? What's the experience going to be? And all those things. Is this on my books or not on my books? And how does it contribute to my goal? But how to sell a dropship business into the C-suite or think about the strategy, where does the spark of the idea come from? Does it come from sort of a bottom up, or is it more like an investor business model evolution that you see for Cheney?
I would say for us, it's a bottom up. It's customer driven, right? We're in the business of getting customers what they need to run their restaurants and food establishments. So it's very much bottom up, customer driven in terms of what products get there.
Yeah, I mean, is that similar to what I see sometimes the marketplace starts? It's it's a little bit of a field of dreams mentality. Yeah. If you build it, they will come. But if you don't have you have a supply tool that doesn't have demand attached to it, it doesn't often work out well.
Yeah, it turns out you definitely need both. I would say what we've seen is both. We've seen one side where you say, hey, I studied my search history on my internal search engine on my website. There's a bunch of stuff that gets searched for that we don't have. I wonder if we had it, if we could sell it, right? That's the sort of bottom-up route where that comes. The top-down is you get plenty of boards that say, hey, we're seeing marketplaces grow, e-commerce grow faster than stores, marketplaces grow faster than e-commerce, and marketplaces are asset efficient. Why don't we have one? Right? Those are the two ways you end up getting the ask.
Yeah, and you mentioned about, you're watching revenue streams of retailers. It's getting harder and harder to get profitable. Where's the actual growth in retail coming from among your customer base and the people you follow?
Yeah, it's hard, right? I mean, I think the short answer is where growth is coming from for bigger companies, frankly, is consolidation, right? If you really wanted to say what's happening, it's not like consumer spend or population are growing that quickly. Yes, pricing has been growing, but I think that we're going to get to a point where that needs to slow down, and so the growth comes from consolidation, and it comes from people sort of shortening their rotation, as it were. Like maybe they used to shop at 5 places a year for grocery product, and now they shop at 3. Maybe they used to, right? And so how do you become that sort of preferred place they go, and how do you become the starting point? I mean, a lot of what has made Amazon successful is being the starting point for e-commerce search. And so how, for your customers, for your categories, can you be the starting point? And they say, yeah, I'm pretty sure they're going to have it. I'm pretty sure they're going to get it to me quickly, and it's going to be priced right.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure you can't get to like the end of June and not talk about tariffs for a second between. So I like put this from both of you guys as we talk about imports. I was told that you can't build bananas in the United States. I think I heard that quote somewhere. No one mentioned that you don't build a banana, but in that press conference. But are tariffs changing any of that dynamics? Is it making like you're buying less of items and moving more to third parties, Russell, or how are you guys both seeing it?
Well, I think the tariff question is still a pretty big open question, right? I don't think the plane's landed, so to speak, in where tariffs are going to wind up. But certainly the marketplace gives us an opportunity to quickly move and get alternative ideas up for our customers to buy. So if tariffs do become an impact with product that we're buying from a certain country, we can certainly pivot to another country and buy paper and other products differently. I think the marketplace gives us an opportunity to be more agile.
Got it.
I think that's right. I mean, to me, what I'm seeing, and yes, this is the hot topic of the moment. Everybody's like, what are we going to do about tariffs? And like the presentation changes like every 36 hours. I would say, you're certainly seeing the balloon squeeze about which vendors, which products, which routing. And one of the nice things about a marketplace is I don't need to care about how that happens. I just need, if I have suppliers that have different sourcing locations and different routing, it will solve itself on the marketplace. As soon as it's an item that I own or that I bought, I actually had to have picked. I had to decide, I'm going to buy it from the Chinese factory, I'm going to buy it from the Vietnamese factory, I'm going to buy it somewhere else. And so, to me, marketplace is just sort of return on effort to avoid tariff risk.
Yeah. No, I mean, it's interesting. I mean, I really trust how Walmart looks at sort of the retail business and watching their CEO and CFO in investor events in the last 3 to 4 months. John David Rainey, their CFO, basically said that, like, look, every SKU has a price elasticity curve that determines how much we buy into. And so if you have a barbecue pit that's now going to be 20% more expensive, and that's going to drop volume 30%, then we're going to buy 30% less. And for them, like, general merchandise is still lagging, but all the growth for general merch is coming from their marketplace. So it's a way, to your point, like, marketplace is about supply chain agility, but that supply chain agility really enables like a business model agility. Is that kind of the gist of what I'm?
Yeah, I think that's right. And it allows you to test and learn your way through life, right? And, we were talking about this before of, hey, if stuff sells really well on Marketplace, but your challenge is you want to get it faster, or you want to be able to deliver it with the same drop as your normal orders, then you can bring it first party. If you've got stuff that's slower turning in the warehouse and you say, listen, there are customers who use this, but it just doesn't make sense for me to buy this by the pallet anymore, then let me move it to Marketplace, right? It sort of gives you another sort of tool in the shed for your merchants.
Yeah,
that's right. It's a whole nother channel, right?
Yeah.
At the end of the day.
Yeah. So let's drop down a level and talk a little bit, in particular to you, Russell, about your program. I understand, your customers are restaurants. They're buying ingredients, they're buying things for their customers that they stock, every day. Where did you start from? And then I guess how many sellers and SKUs did you launch with? Where's the program today? And kind of where do you see it heading? Like, how do you determine customer leading? But
sure. I mean, it's so since the beginning of the year, our marketplace volume has doubled. I can tell you that stat. So from January through last month, we've been very, very happy with the growth. What Aaron talked about earlier, what came first, right? Was it the products or was it the customers, right? So getting customers to the site and not having the right level of products doesn't do anybody any really good. They're not going to come back. And having the products on the site and no customers, back to what we talked about earlier, it's a bit of a yin and a yang, right?
Right.
So it took us a while, and we learned that we have this group of about 700 salespeople in the field, and really activating that group to go out and talk to their customers and get their customers on the site was kind of the secret to what is driving our success, right?
So talk to me about those salespeople. Those are people that are comped on driving, basically getting bigger orders from your current customers and signing up new restaurants and different types of customers.
Yeah, our sales compensation model is a very traditional model. They sell products all day to customers. Those products ship to the customers. The customers, when they pay for those products, the salesmen get a commission from that sale. So what we did is we created an incentive with the marketplace that pays them an even higher commission if a customer buys something from the marketplace. So once we were able to get the sellers around the idea that they can be sleeping at 12 o'clock at night and a customer can order something on the marketplace and they're getting paid, right? So they really started to like that, and that's really what the team has done to help drive that forward.
Are you able to say how much higher that you're comping them on that sale, like on a rough basis? Is it 2 to 1? Is it 30% higher?
It's more than all their average commissions, is what I would say, right? So in our world, there's a pretty big range between a sales rep that makes this much and makes that much, right?
Got it.
But it's certainly very advantageous for them to get customers signed up.
Yeah. And the reason you're able to offer that is because the economics on the back end, the EBIT you're able to get from those orders is higher?
Well,
on an order-by-order basis, or you don't care about the carry, and so as a result, this is a volume?
Well, our expense model changes, right? We don't have to inventory it. We don't have to deliver it. We're not putting it on a truck, right? We're not tying up cash. So all that stuff goes into the calculation to allow us to do that.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. In the early days, obviously, you have a way that customers order from you. These are new SKUs coming on, like Mirakl's a new platform for you. Like, how do you get going? Like, what is that implementation process like? Are they working with your tech team and your merchant? Like, how cross-functional is that?
Well, we've got a lot of, you've got the purchasing team. We've got a couple dedicated people, Derek and Kevin, that are here today that really drive the relationship between the vendor who's selling us products and the customer, right? They're driving all that on the platform. We've gotten tons of support from IT and our CIO, Joe Haber, who makes sure that we get the resources we need to continue to add things to the model. But it took us a little while to figure it out, And I would say today it's vendors now wanting to get on the platform. They see the success. They see the products. I think in the beginning, we were so focused on being perfect, right? And I don't think you should ever let perfect, get in the way of being good, right? Perfect can be the enemy of good. And so you got to get past that and just jump in. And I think ultimately that's what after about a year, we finally just said, we could work on being perfect for a long time, or we can just jump in, and we finally just decided we're just going to jump in.
Yeah. So in terms of the perfection, where do you find that perfection, not to call anyone out, especially if they're in the audience, but like, is it sort of like a marketing question? Or like, is this on brand, or is it more of a merch question? Is this the right product, or is it more of a tech, like all the I's are dotted and T's are crossed, or?
I would say that it's more about that yin and the yang of when's the right time to have enough products on the site that are the right products that you want to introduce your customers to that site. Sometimes you don't get a second chance, right? There's only first chance makes it's very important to take your best foot forward. So we didn't know when that time was.
Got it.
And finally we just said we're going to jump in.
No, it makes sense. Is there something, like, I can imagine that sales team, there's some early adopters and then there's some skeptics. And so as you sort of like do your learnings, you have people that are like, hey, customers are asking for this stuff. Now I have a new tool in my toolbox. But then you have other folks who are like, but this is not what I know how to sell. Is there sort of like a seminal use case that you carry in your back pocket that as you walk around the organization, that sort of brings to light how this really helps your customers?
Funny thing about salespeople, right? They look at other salespeople that are successful, and they want to understand that more. And so we've got some what I would call apostles that have been very successful on the site, and some of them took a while to get there, right? But once you see some of your top sellers having success, the other ones just kind of seem to come along. because it's no longer something they're afraid of. And a lot of it is they don't totally understand it because they're not in control. And that's the big probably difference in their world today. They're in control of everything that customer buys. The minute they move onto the marketplace, the customer is exposed to 100,000 plus items,
Right.
and they're no longer in control.
Yeah. I mean, Aaron, I'm sure as you work across the field, you see fear, confusion, trepidation sometimes.
And often it's how people organize around this. It's funny that the next discussion's on organizational design, because there's a big question of, do I run this fully separately and I have a marketplaces team that sort of goes and does their own thing, or do I have a tighter integration with the merchant team to say, actually, these are the go-get brands that we want to see, or this is how we want to work with existing vendors beyond the core assortment, and so I guess I will put my cards on the table. I vote on the side of being friends with the merchant team rather than being sort of weird competitors to the merchant team. But I have seen both methods tried in marketplaces. And so the more you can sort of integrate that and say, hey, we are just an extension of the merchandise and the assortment that we have, right? We are part of the customer promise for whatever it is, whatever sort of products and services we offer. And so the more you think about it and say, hey, actually, this is a great testing ground for, new brands or new lines that we haven't been really fully ready to put in the stores yet, or, buy our own inventory into, or this is a sort of a great opportunity to sort of offer like the bundle products that maybe never really sell on their own, but they're a great like attach item. And so I guess my big push is, if you want this to be successful, find a way to get the merchants on board and have a sort of customer value prop that ties to both, which I really liked Russell's distinction on why is dropship so nice, because you're controlling, the pricing and that part of the customer value prop, which is important for the consistency.
I think you're 100% on. I mean, if you're not aligned with merchandising, it's going to be hard, right? I think we've had part of our success too is that we've got great collaboration between all the different functions. So it's about getting the customers what they need to succeed. I mean, that's our business model is very simple. If whatever customers need to succeed, that's our job, right? So this is another way and another channel to make that happen. So.
Yeah, it makes sense. I feel like we're previewing Michael and I's conversation on Friday, which is going to come out, but both have to be there. You have to have somebody who will stick their hand up and saying, like, look, I am the owner of this marketplace. I am responsible for if it grows or if it dies, whatever. Because the merchant isn't going to just accept another job. They have their job, which is to grow their category, to grow, sales on the site. But at the end of the day, without the merchant team, what you have is a niche business that's never going to be integrated into the organization. If you want a niche business, great, but it's not. No one's going to care about it. And so that integration is a much harder path, but it's the path to any meaningful value, I think, in a marketplace kind of business.
I mean, the reminder is even at the beginning, right? Amazon ran the marketplace team and the category team separately,
Correct.
and eventually sort of merged the two and decided that was what you needed to do to be successful, because you started having sort of weird misaligned incentives about what went first party versus third party.
Yeah. Amazon tried auctions, it tried Z shops, and then finally, until it put the marketplace like front and center in the search results, on the product pages, competing with, quote unquote, competing for the consumer's value delivery. If the seller can deliver it faster, Jeff Bezos didn't care at all, really, who got the order. And I think that model has really won out from our conversation today. If we're looking sort of like beyond trade, what's your advice, Aaron, to organizations that are looking to maximize their profitability? How should they be thinking about that?
I mean, first, just to define terms, beyond trade is sort of the idea that, hey, most of retail is I buy something from somebody at wholesale and I trade it on to a consumer for more money, right? Like that's sort of the trading revenue. The beyond trading revenue is everything else, whether it's I have a marketplace, whether it's I have Walmart fulfillment services, whether I have ad network data sales. And I would say, the beyond trade is where the profit growth is going to come from, right? Like the GMV and the revenue, a lot of it will still be in sort of core trading revenue, but actually where the money gets made is coming from all that stuff on the side that is super high margin, right? If you work in a 4% EBITDA margin retail business and you sell retail ads that are in the 60 to 80% margin, guess what? That blends up your EBITDA margin. And so I suspect that we'll continue to see people look more and more to be on trade as the way to drive profit.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting to see some of the interplay here. You mentioned, Russell, that the marketplace sort of came from a bottom-up approach, but at some point, if you're going to change how you do business, someone at the top needs to see it. Aaron, we've been talking about, like, it needs to be a board-level decision. Michael, you and I had the same conversation. Is anyone here in the board of directors of any of these large public companies? No? So how do you communicate with the board? Like, what matters to them if you're in the audience and you're trying to get some of these things through?
Yeah, I think you start where Russell was, which is, listen, let's start with we're delivering something better, a better value prop to our end consumers. And we found a efficient way to do that. Like, I think that becomes the discussion. And you say, right, it all starts with good old-fashioned value, trust, selection, experience, right? We try to win on some combination of those four factors, and this can help me on selection. Back to the tariff issue, it can help me on price. As long as I manage the experience well, it should be at least close to neutral or better on the experience. And part of your job is to make it trusted, is to say, hey, this should feel no different. And if anything, it's better to buy it through me than to go to each of those little other point vendors directly. Like, I'm sure, Russell, for your business, a lot of the people you work with are like, we trust this business. We'd much rather buy all those little pieces from you and get it in one place and have, one set of commercial terms and one set of policies. I don't know. It would be good to hear how that's worked for you.
No, I think you're right. I mean, our salesmen have such trust with their customers. The customers trust them. They help them with their business. They're true consultants. So a lot of times it's just products that we didn't stock, right? So that's kind of where it starts. And then what are those products and how do we go get them? How do we get them on the marketplace? And so it's that trust that we have that allows us to grow our share inside each of those accounts by using this additional channel.
Yeah.
So
I think it's such an important point because it can just be easily missed in terms of the growth strategy, because if you're a consumer, if you're a customer, as soon as you're adding a risk premium to a third-party seller, then there's a tax on your business model that is sort of hidden and not realized versus you taking care of it. Kind of like rewinding the clock a little bit, Russell, for people that haven't implemented before a program of this scale, what would you do differently? You already mentioned a little bit, there was sort of like a cliff you're sort of like walking up to and you're like jumping into the pool, or mixing metaphors, but we're going to keep going with it.
There's two things that stand out that I probably would tell you that we learned after we launched. One of them was we set it up like you would use Amazon. We had a credit card attached to all of our customers' accounts. And at the time, it made sense, right? I mean, they want to buy something, put the credit card, buy the product, it ships, gets delivered. But, we're in the restaurant distribution business, and all of our customers have terms.
Right.
And the chefs don't own the restaurant, so they don't have the owner's credit card, right? So we learned pretty quickly, and it took us, not pretty quickly, it took us a little while to figure it out, that we needed to get the terms aligned with each of our customers. So if they've got 7-day payment terms or 14-day terms or 30-day terms, we made that credit card thing an option, and if you want to use your terms, you could use your terms. So that'd be one of our earlier learnings for sure is the credit card piece. And I would say the other thing we learned, the other big thing is make it integrated into your, to have one single customer experience when a customer is doing business with you. Today, we won't have that fixed until actually probably the end of the third quarter, but we've got two experiences. They can buy on our Cheney Central site, which is where they buy all their products that we stock in our buildings. But if they want to buy something from the Cheney stockroom, which is the Mirakl marketplace, they have to leave and go over here to do that. And I think we've learned that when you put it all in one place and the customer can it's about making yourself easy to do business with, right? Customers want easy. And so when they're on the Cheney stockroom or they're buying their regular orders coming tomorrow, sure would be nice when they get down there, if we don't stock purple kumquats, they type in purple kumquats, they see them, they see this going to ship direct from the purple kumquat customer, vendor, if you will, and they order it, and then when they check out, this is coming tomorrow on the truck. This is coming direct from the vendor, right? So we're working on that. Those are two really big things that we think will make a big difference in accelerating our growth.
Yeah, it makes sense. I mean, I think acceleration is clearly a theme of the event, not to be too cheesy about it. Aaron, what are you advising your customers next? I mean, clearly I know some of your themes, profitability, these alternative revenue streams. What are things that you're advising to help people accelerate more in the future?
Yeah, I think the key things that we're talking about, one is just sort of broadening the supply base, right? Back to this this tariff issue and finding interesting ways to deliver better value to your consumers. So I think for a lot of people, truly having a opening price point, good, better, best hierarchy, and depending on where your sort of part of the inventory is, will determine where you need more of the go get. Some people say, hey, we're the opening price point player. We've got that covered. What we really need is the aspirational stuff. You'll have other ones who'll say, no, actually, what I need Marketplace to cover is the cross-border trade sort of cheap stuff that I need to compete against Temu and Shein historically. Although we'll see what tariffs do to that business model. I think the other big thing we're pushing on is moving from just sort of a transactional retail media network to one that's actual, data sharing, being a preferred provider. I think one of the things that worries me for a lot of people with retail media networks is that most vendors don't really want to deal with more than like half a dozen of them. So if you get further down the order in size,
right,
and you are just another place for me to spend retail media dollars, that's problematic, unless you say, no, but I'm actually giving you better data than you get when you do this with Amazon or Walmart. I've got better customer data, or I've got unique access, or I'm giving you the ability to target better. So I guess I would just say, when you're thinking about your retail media network bolt-on, don't just think about that as all I have to do is sort of rinse and repeat what I see the big guys doing.
Right. So you have to offer that kind of unique value that's specific to your niche category. Got it. Russell, you mentioned integrating the sites as you kind of look beyond in the next term. Is media in your future? Is seller setting prices in your future? Like, how do you think, or is the fulfillment model?
Yeah. Three things probably come to mind. One is in our business, there's 3 temperature zones we ship. Dry, cooler, freezer. And you can imagine that when you get to freezer, it gets pretty expensive, right? The freight to ship something frozen costs a lot more than the freight to ship something dry. And so at times it can become a little bit cost prohibitive. So one of the 3 things would be leveraging our freight rates with our vendors, right? Our suppliers. Today we're using their freight rates. They're using their individual freight rates and selling product to our customers. And we think our scale is such that we can help with that cost of goods. I would say that's one thing that we think is in our future for sure that we want to get done. Boy, I had 3 things. Isn't that terrible?
No,
No, that's one thing that we for sure want to get done to make the platform easier to use.
Yeah,
we talked about integrating, right? Integrating, we think that'll happen yet this year, third quarter. That's going to make it really easy to use as well. So those are 2 things that come to mind.
Yeah, I think the freight it's a key component because it's such a big part of the costs of the retail infrastructure.
Yeah, and the last thing that I just remembered, it's personalized marketing, right? So we haven't activated one-to-one personalized marketing. What's important to a pizza shop is not necessarily important to a fine dining steak establishment, is not necessarily important to a deli. And so we have all the data, and we want to personalize that data. When we create offers to those customers when they go to the site, we want them to be specific to the segment that they're in. So being able to generate one-on-one personalized marketing approach, that also is our future that we want to get done.
Yeah, that reminds me, we could probably spend a whole session just on marketing for your suppliers, which is another thing that I think people forget about, which is if you're going to onboard a seller, not only do they want to know about your audience, they want to know about how can we promote ourselves to your audience so that you can increase your book of business. If they treat you as an account, they're treating you as an account, and they're trying to increase their share of wallet to your consumers. So I definitely think that's one thing I take away for that, is think about that seller experience, kind of balance between the seller experience and the buyer experience. Second, I think big takeaway for me from this conversation is this idea that the merchant organization is critical, and you can't have a true growth marketplace strategy without bringing them along in the conversation, really leading with their needs, because you can't move faster than your merchant organization. You can't just sort of leave them behind like, oh, we're going to do this without them. We'll think about them later. You're just not going to grow. And then I think finally is, especially from Russell, I took lead with the customer and let the customer tell your story, especially into your organization. And if you're talking about facts and figures, no one believes projections, but people believe what your customers are about. And I think a lot of times, like your story about, like, in particular, like empowering your sales teams to represent the customers in your organization are super important. So I just wanted to thank you guys for your time today. And I think as a result of that, I'm going to hand it over to Mirakl's Chief Customer Officer, Sophie Marchesou, for the next session. So thank you everyone for being here, and to our esteemed panelists.